Have you ever walked away from a conversation thinking, how did they get that from what I just said or what I just asked? You were asking questions trying to get clarity, and they thought you were challenging them. You were overwhelmed, and they thought you were being rude. I often do this thing where I meant to say so much more, and I just say like the first part of the statement. If they respond or whatever, I get distracted and I don't finish my thought. So they just got this one piece of information and be like, that was fucking rude. And I was like, oh wait, there was this whole other context that I was trying to provide, but I never finished my thought. If you're distracted, people imply you don't care. And a big one, if you are questioning things, if you're asking questions about something, if you ask one too many, you're now argumentative. When you need space, people feel like you're rejecting them. And another thing that we get misunderstood about all the time is, frankly, our rigidity. Our rigidity about routines, about the types of food we like to eat and when we like to eat it, structure, and liking or not liking surprises, changes to our routine that are unexpected and how that might affect us. They don't understand the context for why this is a big deal for us. But what's on the back end of that is every decision we have to make that we thought we already had figured out is an emotional taxation. One of the most exhausting parts of AuDHD isn't sensory overload or executive dysfunction. One of the lesser talked about issues with being AuDHD is feeling like you're constantly misunderstood. Have you ever walked away from a conversation thinking, how did they get that from what I just said or what I just asked? Maybe you were trying to understand and they thought you were arguing. You were asking questions trying to get clarity and they thought you were challenging them. You were overwhelmed and they thought you were being rude. One of the most exhausting parts of AuDHD isn't sensory overload or executive dysfunction. One of the lesser talked about issues with being AuDHD is feeling like you're constantly misunderstood. Being AuDHD means that you're speaking a slightly different social language than everybody else. Neither is wrong, but without translations, both parties walk away frustrated. So often, people will misread your intentions. People often imply intent based on others' behavior, but unfortunately, our intent is not very obvious based on our behavior. So sometimes we're quiet, and others might think that we're angry or we don't want to be there. That's a big one for me. Sometimes we can be a little blunt. Our delivery of vitally important and often with the most wonderful intentions of being helpful information is often delivered in a way that isn't taken that great and is misunderstood as us being rude or just having a terrible bedside manner. And while that may be kind of true, it's not our intention. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, when we're excited, we're overly excited and it's too much for everybody else. I don't understand, based on our normal demeanor, where all this energy and this, based on our normal demeanor, most people are a little confused where all that energy is coming from all of a sudden when we get excited about something that we're passionate about. On the ADHD side of things, if you're distracted, people imply you don't care. And a big one, if you are questioning things, if you're asking questions about something, if you ask one too many, you're now argumentative. And when you need space, people feel like you're rejecting them. We often communicate based on strictly information, while others often communicate a lot on implication. And then when you mix ADHD in there again, you get impulsivity, you interrupt, you change topics really rapidly, and then you circle back around and people just don't know where to follow the conversation or how if they're not also ADHD. It can make communication between neurodiverse and neurotypical people very confusing. I want to preface this video is as much for neurotypicals as it is for the neurodiverse. So if you're a neurotypical person and you feel like you're going to get nothing out of this, stick around. Because if you have somebody who's ADHD or autistic or both in your life, then you'll definitely understand better and maybe get some quick tips on how to communicate better with that person. Hey there, what's up? My name's Ash, and I'm a neurodiverse life coach. I help people who are ADHD and on the spectrum find their purpose, find their flow, and learn how to live life in a way that really fits with who they are and how they function. And on this channel, we talk about big life stuff. How to make better decisions, how to learn more about who you are and what you want, and even the more spiritual and unknown concepts. We talk about it all here. So if any of that sounds like you, like this video. So if any of that sounds like you, like this video, subscribe to the channel. I put out new videos every week. And if you're neurodiverse, if you're ADHD or on the spectrum, I have a free ebook that will really help you out. It's called the Neuro Navigator Guide, and the link for it is in the description. And if you'd really like to dive deeper, whether that's just building some new routines to help you function better, whether that's making some big life and career changes to really, really fit your life to who you are and how you function, whatever it may be, the link to work with me is in the description as well. So when people who are ADHD or on the spectrum ask questions, it's often taken as argumentative, especially in the workplace. When you start asking questions about the task at hand, you're trying to get clarity on what is expected of you and their objectives, while the people you're asking questions of are thinking that you don't think the assignment is worthy, or you're challenging authority somehow, or something like that. To many neurotypicals, questions imply disagreement. And for us, questions mean I literally don't have enough information and I'm trying to do better. We're always gathering data. That's what you need to know about us. Our communication prioritizes precision and clarity over social harmony and implied meanings. Often neurotypicals are kind of averse to direct communication because they take it as rude. However, with neurodivergent folks, we need that direct communication. I need, in all of my relationships, direct communication to be able to, frankly, do better for you. So when someone says to me, we should hang out sometime, I won't prioritize it because I don't know if they're just kind of saying that or if they really intend to hang out. So, for example, if you're dealing with somebody who is neurodiverse and you want to hang out with them, instead of saying we should hang out sometime, maybe you should say, are you free this Saturday? I'd like to hang out. Directness will get you whatever you want with people like us. You'll get the answer you're seeking. You'll get in a relationship. You'll get the action that you're kind of expecting. If you communicate with us correctly. If you don't, we don't really know what to do. And if we're not good at self-advocating and asking questions to clarify sometimes in the moment, because we just haven't gotten a cue that we should yet, we're going to miss each other. We're going to be ships passing in the night sometimes. If there's something you want your friend, your family member, your partner who is neurodiverse to do, and you're struggling to get them to do it, first of all, this goes for all relationships. We're not mind readers, okay? I know sometimes there are moments in life where we all feel like this person should know to do this, but they're not doing it, and that's disappointing to me. I've been there, you've been there, we've all been there. But when it comes to neurodiverse folk, if you are more direct, instead of saying, I wish someone would help me with this, I'd be like, yeah, I can understand that. I understand what it's like to feel that way. And then if you say instead, can you help me with this? I'd be like, oh, let me jump off. I'll be right there. I'm coming, It's the simplest changes in communication that will give us a little more directness to be able to meet you halfway, to show up in the way that you want us to show up. Oftentimes with neurodiverse folk, it's not that we're unwilling to do things, it's that we just don't have a roadmap. If you give us a trusty manual and communicate with us about what is expected, we will show up. Another thing that so many people are averse to doing is saying no, or giving a direct answer in general. Instead of saying maybe, say yes or no. Even if the answer doesn't really make you happy, someone who is neurodiverse is going to get a lot more clarity and therefore be able to feel a lot better no matter what the answer is. If they get a direct answer, it's always better. People who are AuDHD perform significantly better when the expectations are explicit. If everything's open-ended, we don't really know what to do next. And if we have a task list, we're good. And if we know exactly what each task means, we're good. But if we don't, then there's going to be some confusion. And yes, we will have to ask questions. And if you entertain them, it'll get done. So when you're out there interacting with somebody who is neurodiverse, try to keep that in mind. Try to remember that, the more direct I can be with this person, the better off everything will be. I'll get what I need from them. They will get what they need from me, and they won't feel stressed, and I won't feel stressed or confused. I know it's hard to break that mold if you're neurotypical and that's not the way you're used to communicating, but I promise with your friends who are neurodiverse, it will help. It will really change things. Now, for those of us who are neurodiverse, conversely, we could do ourselves some favors in this department by learning how to self-advocate just a little bit better. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with prefacing your list of questions with, hey, I'm going to ask you some questions. I want you to know, like, I'm just trying to get a better understanding. I'm not trying to, like, question the way you've laid this out or whatever it may be. Me asking questions is not me being critical of you. I need to understand so I can do this better. That's all you got to say. It helps. It helps just break the ice and not make people feel like, is this a confrontation? You know, if they know going in, oh, this isn't confrontational, I just need to answer these questions. Great. Everybody's on the same page. So it's the little things that we can do too, not just the neurotypicals, that can help us. If you let people know what you need a little bit better, it will help. And another thing that we get misunderstood about all the time is, frankly, our rigidity. Our rigidity about routines, our rigidity about the types of food we like to eat and when we like to eat it, structure, and liking or not liking surprises, changes to our routine that are unexpected, and how that might affect us. These are all things that, when the day's going great, we're pretty solid. But if things change and we aren't expecting that, things can go a little sideways. And neurotypicals might assume that we're being stubborn, that we just are turning into a brat because we're not getting our way. And sometimes, sure, everybody can want to get their way or be upset that things didn't go the way that they were expecting. For us, it's on a different level, though, because we hold on to those routines as something that stabilizes us. And so when that changes and we don't have a good backup plan in place, we can get a little panicky and a little stressed. And then by way of that, we can, kind of be stubborn, maybe a little agitated. And a lot of people don't know how to take that. They don't understand the context for why this is a big deal for us. But what's on the back end of that is every decision we have to make that we thought we already had figured out is an emotional taxation. It's mental energy that we have to put forth. That predictability reduces our anxiety greatly. And having routines frees up a little more executive function space, brain space for us. So a change of plans, a sudden one, a drastic one, it feels like somebody just pulled the rug out from under you and you have to start over and thinking about how you're going to go about your whole entire day. And for a neurotypical, that's like, okay, cool. For a neurodiverse brain, that's a different story. Especially if you really were looking forward to it, if you had already kind of mentally rehearsed how you were going to go through these things you have to do that are a little more challenging, it can be tough. The only time I enjoy a change up in my routine is if I go from having a lot of things on my plate to almost nothing on my plate. That's the only time where I'm happy if there's a plan change, honestly. But that's almost never the case in life. The schedule change usually comes up with me having to emotionally prepare myself for doing something else at the time that I thought I was going to be doing this other thing. And that can be really taxing on me. And you know what? One of my tasks usually will get dropped and moved to another day at that point, because by the time I get to the end of the other stuff, that last thing, I'm like, I got nothing. I got zero to put into this, And that's the reality for neurodiverse people. And all of these things can really affect our relationships. For one, friendships can feel really hard sometimes. I'm fortunate to have a lot of people in my life who are neurodiverse, as it turns out. I always wondered why other people struggled a lot to find friends as a neurodiverse person. And I'm like, well, I definitely struggle with some people in my life more than others. But most of my core people in my life, as it turns out, are not neurotypical. And that makes sense as to why we don't really have a problem hanging out with each other. I kind of unintentionally built a core friend group that is mostly not neurotypical people. And that's also not surprising in a lot of ways. But when it comes to being friends with neurotypical people who may not understand what's going on with you, and you may be trying to figure that out yourself, and that's okay. But you're going to experience this where you may just not feel fully understood. Your friends are like, I don't really get your routines, man. Like, you do you, And sometimes with certain people, you feel like you have to mask to kind of make the relationship work. I don't know if that's the words I'm looking for, but you feel like they're not going to fully get you if you aren't somewhat masked, if that makes sense. And then if things get a little awkward, you find yourself kind of replaying conversations after the interaction and wondering if you said something wrong. And often you just feel like everybody else got the social interactions manual that you never got. I don't know. For me, I've always felt like in social groups, larger social groups, if it's like 2 or 3 people, I'm usually okay. But like more than that, forget it. I've always felt like I was trying to keep up in a way with the conversation, with the group, with just observing what people are interested in that I might not be, and just wondering why that is. You're usually an interesting person to neurotypicals, so you're included, but you still have trouble fitting in a way. And that's a pain that a lot of people don't understand, that we experience a lot. I feel like I fit in and I blend in certain ways, and then there are moments where, the mask comes off and people have this moment of realization that they're like, oh, this guy is different than I am. And I can kind of see that on people. And it makes it hard to relate sometimes, to be honest. You're just slightly off in certain moments, and that's the giveaway that might make people a little uncomfortable sometimes, and makes you uncomfortable a hell of a lot. Luckily, and I've said this before, we're kind of in this age where I feel like people are starting to understand people who are not neurotypical a little bit better, and the awareness is out there a little more that the spectrum is not just people who are very obviously on the spectrum and have had, special ed services their whole life or what have you. Not everybody's like that. Some people are what society would call higher functioning, but suffer great amounts of pain that is hidden underneath a mask. And they do suffer some of the same things that people who you might be more abundantly aware of that might be on the spectrum, but just in a different way. So it kind of creates this pain that is difficult to navigate because you feel like you're expected to keep up with everybody else, but you're not really built for that sometimes. And, you're functioning in a neurotypical world just enough to maybe blend in most of the time, but you're always a little bit feeling like an outsider because it drains you to function like that. But we are living in an age where people are starting to understand better. And if you kind of help you out, it might work. So, don't be afraid to share with people what you kind of struggle with sometimes, because you know what? A lot of people are pretty receptive actually nowadays. And you can help yourself by helping them understand you a little bit better, giving them a little context for how you are. I feel like if people know what to expect from you, then they aren't shocked and it's not weird. Let's talk about what happens when you're having a bit of a shit day and we're in shutdown mode. Shutdowns and meltdowns often look quite different. Shutdowns make you look like you don't want to be there. And maybe you don't in some of those moments. Or you want to be there, but not under the circumstances that things are going. Or you're just having a moment and you don't know how to express that. But often you can't speak, you kind of can't think, you can't answer simple questions, you kind of seem emotionally numb. You just kind of dissociate and stare off into space. That's me. You leave a conversation mid-sentence. Also me. And you can be isolating yourself. All of these things look like you've rejected the group and you don't want to be there. They assume that you're ignoring them, that you don't care, that you're giving somebody the silent treatment, when in reality, you are just overloaded and your body shuts down because it needs to recover. Your nervous system is actually trying to protect you. And while it is inconvenient when it happens, it's probably for the best because, your brain has decided you've hit your max capacity and it needs to chill for a minute. And sometimes it's the environment. Sometimes it's you made these plans when you felt like you were in a really extroverted mood, and now that you're here, you're like, oh, fuck. This is not my day for this. It happens to all of us, and it's something that we have to learn to navigate, right? Maybe you need to go take a minute. Certainly don't force yourself into the situation if you feel like recovery is not possible. If you don't take a beat for 5 minutes and you're going to feel a little better and be able to return back to your friends or whatever you're doing, Look, I've had this after a long work day that, you know, I've shut down before where I'm out to dinner with a girl and I'm like in my head going, oh my God, she probably thinks I'm like not into this or I don't want to talk to her. And I just, I don't have anything left. And I didn't realize that till we got to this fucking meal. And now I'm sitting here and the poor woman is having dinner with a brick wall practically. And, you're in your head about this. And, I've learned a lot since then. But in those moments, I struggled to say anything until like later. And, I think as long as you say it that day, so nobody feels rejected. But in that moment, be like, you know what? I've had a really long day and I'm just struggling a little bit with words right now. So, but I'm not. But I want you to know I'm not enjoying your company. Little things make a big, big difference. Look, but if we've gone past shutdown and we're getting to the point where you're so overloaded that you actually feel your energy increasing and not in a good way, and you feel like you're going to literally explode, you're on a fast-moving highway to meltdown, okay? And you don't want to be there. Nobody wants to see that. You don't want to see that. Nobody likes going through it. Meltdowns can be agitation. They can be like literal kind of tantrums, and yelling or just kind of getting really agitated. I've had to explain to previous partners that if I ever get like really agitated, I want you to know it's probably has nothing to do with you, and just give me a little space for a minute and I will like cool myself down and I'll center myself again and I will come back. And I always come back and explain that I let things get a little too far and I was a little stressed out. And I want you to know it had nothing to do with you, really. I was just maxed out and I couldn't handle the noise in here, whatever it was. And something happened that really frustrated me unexpectedly. And I kind of lost my shit for a minute. I'm really sorry to see that. Little things go a long way. And again, we don't like to get ourselves in situations where the meltdown happens. The shutdown is bad enough. But the reality is they are going to happen sometimes. Life is going to throw us unexpected things that really throw us for a loop. If we're a little bit stressed out and a little bit in a rush or we're trying to get something done, we can unfortunately ignore those warning signs that, hey, you're pushing it, dude. You're pushing it. You got to cool it for a minute. You got to decrease the amount of stimuli in your life right now. Otherwise, you're going to just snap. Because in those moments, you have to put yourself in the neurotypical person's position. They see you kind of having a little bit of a freak out over something that to them probably seems like not a big deal. But what they don't have is the context of it wasn't that one thing. That one thing was just like the straw that broke the camel's back. There were like 10 other things leading up to that, preceding that were building you up and building you up and building you up. And you were masking. You were trying to do the thing and be the person that you want to be with your friends or whatever. You're trying to show up. You're trying to function, whatever it is. But sometimes we push that a little too far in our effort to be like everybody else. And it comes back to bite us. But if you put yourself in that person's position, especially, in dating situations, I date women. Women can get a little scary if they see a guy getting a little aggressive, even though that aggression is not at all directed at them or about them. It's something you have to be aware of, that you don't want to scare people. Giving them some context, first of all, you don't want to let that happen. You don't want to get to that point whenever possible. Again, it's going to happen sometimes, but whatever you can do to, A, give people a little context before something like that happens, like as you're getting to know them, B, try to work on that self-awareness that, hey, I'm getting a little stressed out about this. Maybe I need to take 5 minutes. Try to take that 5-minute freak out in the other room. That can be helpful. Letting somebody know on the way out to go have your moment, hey, I'm way too overstimmy right now. I got to go. I'll be back. Or won't be. Life is life. Do what you have to do. Self-advocacy can really change everything. You can't control everyone's reaction or how they're going to perceive these moments. But what you can do is reduce misunderstanding. For example, you say, hey, I ask a lot of questions because that's how I have to understand things. If I seem blunt to you, I'm trying to make sure that I'm being clear, not rude. So tell me if I've upset you, but I want you to know that that's never my intent. Hey, if I disappear for a minute, it probably means I got a little overwhelmed. There's just too much going on. Like, I'm good. Just let me have my moment and I'll be back. If the plans change suddenly, just know I might need a minute to figure out what's next and how to navigate that. I don't do so well with plan changes and routine disruptions. So when those things happen, I have a little bit of a struggle and I might need a minute to just like take a deep breath and figure out how I'm going to navigate the change. Hey, just so you know, if I ask you for clarification, I'm not trying to argue with you. It's really just for me to understand. I struggle with context a little bit, so if there are a few context pieces missing, I won't understand, and I need to get that understanding to do it right. These tiny little shifts in the way we communicate with others will prevent vast amounts of misunderstanding and frustration for both parties. And learn your own patterns. One thing I didn't understand for years was that other people weren't really hearing what I thought I was saying. So in moments where I thought I was being clear, I realized that I was like 5 steps ahead in the conversation, but like in my head, and I like just hit the ground running at step 5, and they're stuck at step, they're like, what step, or what are we even talking about right now? It's a very common ADHD thing, but having that self-awareness of understanding what overwhelms you, what people consistently seem to misunderstand when you communicate with them. If you can pick up the patterns of what people tend to misunderstand, it will help you kind of figure out what you need to change to help them figure it out and help you not have these misunderstandings in life as much. You have to determine what communication style works best for me. I've gotten to a point in my life where I basically demand nothing less than super open and super honest communication, even if I feel like somebody might be hurt by it. And the reason is, if I beat around the bush with people to try to like communicate in the way that neurotypicals communicate, what will end up happening is they will misunderstand me because I will inevitably say it in a way that someone will misinterpret. And then I won't know how to then correct the situation. And in that way, I will end up in unsatisfactory situations in life for me and the other person. So it's no longer worth it for me to try to be like other people in the way that I communicate. I just try to communicate in full honesty and just, even when the question I ask might have an answer that I may not like, and vice versa, even where my answer might make someone a little uncomfortable. You can give someone an uncomfortable answer and give some context that might help them understand why you're not trying to be a jerk about it. It's possible. And then on that frame, being more cognizant of those moments where you accidentally sound a little harsher than you meant to. I often do this thing where I meant to say so much more, and I just say like the first part of the statement, and I like don't get to, I don't know if they respond or whatever, I get distracted and I don't finish my thought. So they just got this one piece of information and be like, that was fucking rude. And I was like, oh wait, there was this whole other context that I was trying to provide, but I like never finished my thought, so it gets complicated sometimes. But noticing what you say sometimes that makes you sound a little harsher than you intended, trying to pick up those patterns is really important. It helps you kind of do better in the future and not hurt anybody's feelings, and not be misunderstood about what you're really trying to do, which is usually with the best intentions. And then you need to understand, like I said before, what are you not communicating to people that would help them understand you better and understand your needs, frankly, that your needs are a little different than theirs, and you don't expect everybody to always accommodate everything that you want or need because, that's unreasonable and the world doesn't revolve around you. But you need to help people understand what your day-to-day is like and how little things that mean nothing to somebody else might be a big deal for you sometimes, and that you need a little space to navigate that. The more you can understand those differences in you, those needs that you feel like are a struggle to fulfill when certain things happen, whether it's a friend or a family, whoever you're with, or in the workplace especially. Try to work on those needs that you're not advocating for very well. And remember, the early communication, when the signs are starting to accumulate within you that you're hitting a threshold of you're quickly approaching that state where you don't want to be in, all it takes is for you to say to someone, hey, I need a minute. I'm getting a little overwhelmed. Can we be more specific? Because I'm feeling a little stressed because I don't know what's going on. Or I need time to think. Sometimes people hammer you with questions and you do want to answer them, but there's too many factors that you have to consider. Or your environment's just too much and you can't really concentrate on that while you're doing this, whatever. Say, I need a little time to think. Just give me a few. Or if you're in the wrong environment with somebody and it's time to get out or change something up, say, hey, this environment is getting really difficult for me. I don't know if we can stay. That early communication prevents those later shutdowns and meltdowns. The more you can understand those things, the more you can advocate for them, the better off you'll be. And everybody will be happy because not only will everybody not be having a meltdown, they're not having misunderstandings or having personalized feelings about what's going on. So for the friends, family, partners of someone who is neurodiverse, a few things could go a long way. 1, believe what they're telling you about their experience. Even if you don't get it, even if you can't possibly conceive how someone could be stressed out by something so small, just believe them. Do you think people want to be inconvenienced by stupid small things? No, they don't. So if they're telling you that is stressful for them, just believe them, even if you don't get it. Goddamn, this one should be number 1. Be direct. If you are direct, even if you feel like what you're saying to someone, even if you feel like what you're saying to your neurodiverse friend might maybe hurt their feelings a little bit, again, they will be better off if you're direct. Don't assume intent on your neurodiverse friend. What they do and how they feel are often two different things in terms of how they manifest themselves. If you're feeling like you're going to react to something that's been said or done, get some clarity before you do, because you might find out that, again, their intent or the thought process behind whatever they're doing or saying is not what you maybe thought it was. Don't guess with us. Just ask. We're actually good at answering questions. We don't mind it. Just ask. If it feels like you're throwing a lot of information at a neurodiverse person and it seems like they aren't quite answering you yet, give them some processing time. We process things a little slower and in different ways than others, so just give us a little time. And understanding that someone who's neurodiverse, what you might perceive as excessive amount of questions is really just them trying to understand the context clues that you probably already figured out that they don't really quite understand in the same way. Or frankly, if they're trying to read written instructions and they're asking you for clarity, it's usually because something is actually ambiguous and you may not identify that it is ambiguous, but it is ambiguous to them. And also understand that sensory overwhelm is real. It is real for neurotypicals too, but they don't experience it nearly as intensely as the neurodiverse. So, think of those times when something's going on, your kids are screaming in the car and the music's on and you're trying to go somewhere and you need to turn the music down to see the directions better, see your GPS better, that's what's going on in our brains all the time. So understand that sensory overload is real and we experience it just far more intensely than you do. So for my neurodiverse friends, being misunderstood is one of those things that can make you feel too intense, too emotional, too rigid, too sensitive, too difficult. But it's not really that. It's that our system speaks a different language than everybody else's. And if we don't help each other communicate those things, then we're always going to be a little bit at odds. It doesn't mean that you can't improve and grow and that others can't do the same. We all have communication habits and better routines that we can build. But understanding how your brain works allows you to advocate for yourself better, explain yourself more effectively, and surround yourself with people who identify with you and understand you on a much deeper level. We can both give each other the roadmaps to a better understanding. To be clear, being understood is not about finding people who just agree with everything that you say and think. It's about finding people who are willing to ask the question, help me understand how your brain works or how you function. If you have a great neurotypical, neurodiverse misunderstanding story, feel free to share it in the comments. And until next time, peace.